my friends? Hello. Welcome back for some more pointless challenges. We're back after a little while on this map. We're at cycle 550. A little bit of time has passed. That's mostly because I've been doing a lot of like the dirty work jobs, trying to get things a little bit more performant, making sure we can sustain on what we have. We're doing pretty well. Food count's looking pretty good. Water, which is our only other real resource that's regularly going to be determining whether we're living or dying, looking great. I'm full on water up here and not so full here. I'll have to rebalance that a little bit as far as where water is being used from, but still looking great. Let's take a look at what we were looking at last time, which was our space colony, and kind of see how it's going up here. So still have 10 people living out here. Everything's going pretty well. I did make some updates to this setup, by the way, and I figured out how shovels were getting off of this platform, and I find this really obnoxious. So let me see how much there is here. Let me see if there's a way to feed a whole bunch of them right now. Doesn't look like it. Doing a bunch of building down at the bottom of the map, so we might be getting a bunch of suffocation warnings in this video. But what happens, let's see if we can get it to happen here, is when you dump out all of the regolith and drop it into the chamber, I suppose. Close this back up and get it reset. The shovels will come eat, and if one of them happens to barf on one of these edge tiles, they will drop a piece down here. The shovels can then burrow inside it, and if they burrow inside it when it's on this very side, they can fall out the side and actually fall down to this bottom platform. So that's what was happening, and that's the one real flaw with this. So the only cleanup that I have here is that if I ever detect a shovel on this platform, I'll just grab it and move it back in here. That won't always work because I have a population limit here of 17, whereas the actual egg limit is much higher than that. So I don't know, not perfect. I could make 2 of these rooms and this thing would work out pretty well. Yeah, a bunch of other stuff you could do with this, but trying to minimize power as much as possible, not need cooling and not need anything fancy like that. This seems okay. It's not great, but it's okay. So yeah, as far as the rest of the stuff that's been going on, I'm just going to need to check on these people that are suffocating every once in a while, because they like to go the wrong way when they start suffocating, because this bottom core has a little bit of oxygen in it. Some other stuff that had happened, I got a lot of suggestions from people leaving stuff in the comments about building a drywall or something like that that's made out of a material that they don't have access to. That will basically keep a perpetual digging job up at any one of those spaces. So this was actually a really good idea. I like this a lot, so I did it. I don't have enough sandstone, which was the resource that I was low enough on that I could deprive them of. So I do have it on most places. The only place that I don't is over here on the right. So yeah, that's the only kind of downside with this right now. I could also switch over to maybe something like igneous rock or something like that. The way that this has to work, and the way that I got it to work, is I have just a little area where I request for a certain resource at an extremely high amount, and then I put it behind a couple of locked doors. You could just put it behind one. I guess I don't necessarily need to, but it's just put it in a place that nobody can ever get access to. And then when you're ready to build, what you can do is you can open the doors. By the way, this is on a very high priority, so I have this being sent here anytime I find something like that. You can open the doors, and then now you should have access to build with it. Some of it will be reserved because of the nature of all of this already like claiming some of that sandstone. So you can do something like this, but I'm only going to get like 1 tile here. But the basic idea is that once you do this, you set up where to build, then you'll run out, which is kind of unfortunate. I don't have another resource that's low enough right here, so I'll have to find another solution for the rest of it. And then when you want to deprive them of it again, you just flip the switch and close the doors again. Like so. There. And now you basically just have permanent digging jobs at any one of these places. This was a great idea. Handful of people recommended this to me, so that's what I'm doing. And yeah, it's working out great. So thanks for that tip. Let's check a look at our notes here and see what else is going on. Oh, something else I mentioned in my DLC video that was just recently released is a better way to sterilize stuff. I honestly had no idea that you could use chlorine, and that I knew you could use chlorine, but I didn't know you could sterilize water in this way. So it actually will interact with stuff that's inside one of these reservoirs. And I never thought that this worked before because a while back when I tried to test out different ways of cleaning water, I would try to just have the water out in a pit somewhere, like out in the open, and then have gas like bumping into it, but that didn't do anything. But this works great. So if you just pump it into a liquid reservoir here, flood it with some chlorine, it cleans it, and then you can pump it back out. I may eventually talk about this build separately, but this looks pretty crazy, the actual automation that's here. But the only thing that's really kind of remarkable about this is that I have it hooked up to some automation on this container, so that when this fills up, after so much time, I will allow it to flow all out, and then I will not allow it to flow back in until I get back to about 5%. And then that's just on another filter gate to stop the flow from coming back in. So this will basically take a full tank of germy water. It'll sterilize it all. It'll pump it back out into some of these. There can be some germs left over occasionally because of the stale stuff in the pipes. So that's still a little bit of a problem, but it's not, I mean, it's not that bad. Like, it gets distributed over a huge amount of water, so it's not that big of a deal. Yeah, so cool little setup there that I have, I think, talked about a little bit in my last DLC video. I don't quite remember off the top of my head how much detail there was about that, but I may eventually talk about this in a separate build if you're interested in a video like that. Obviously not the greatest of priorities because there's a bunch of different ways to do this, but basically if you can find a way to put a tank full of germy water in a room full of chlorine, then there you go, it solves the problem. Alright, let's look at some other stuff I've been up to. This is very new. This is just my puffed ranching area. I'm just collecting puffs and puff princes right now, and this is for two things. One, it's for slime for my long-term mushroom production, because, oh, I totally forgot. We need to turn this back on, because these are our pointless challenges, which I totally forgot to introduce. We need to produce every food type by the end of the game. So this is going to be my sustainable way to produce mushrooms. This may also contribute to feeding fish once we can get algae sterilized from, or synthesized, or whatever it's called, from this slime that drops out of here. And then the other thing is it's also going to be producing eggs that are going to create squeaky puffs, which are going to be up here. So I've got those going, and that's because these water weeds, or they produce lettuce, I can call them either one, I guess, they will require bleachstone, which is what these guys do, and they basically just take chlorine and turn that into bleachstone. Then I've got this all hooked up to a chlorine vent that's right here. So effectively, in a really roundabout way, I'm turning chlorine into lettuce with the help of a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, I've got those setups going, and that means we're officially in the state of the game where I'm going to be starting on a bunch of these different food types. I'm probably also going to start rockets fairly soon. I have a good amount. I guess I don't have that much steel. I thought I had more than that. Maybe it's because I'm using it on those bunker tiles up there. So let's go ahead and resume this, actually. Make steel forever. Yeah, so got that. We did capture another source for this polluted oxygen, by the way. If you have like a polluted oxygen vent or something like that, that can be really good to keep these guys fed. But what I'm doing is just the trick that we were using earlier in this run, which is just filling up some liquid reservoirs with polluted water, and then deconstructing them every once in a while, so that they just gas off their polluted water into polluted oxygen. It's effectively a way to turn polluted water into stuff like this, stuff to feed fish, and also the eggs and meat and stuff that you would need for the squeaky puffs. So kind of a lot of utility coming out of here, but it's all really fueled by this polluted water. The source for this polluted water was just a new polluted water vent that I found down in the ice biome. It's like the frozen core biome, I guess. So it's just down here. You can see that I'm not nearly using my water up fast enough because I just can't. I'm getting a lot more water than I can spend, which is a really good thing because that means we can start setting up anything else that might require water, like sleet wheat and like bristle blossoms and anything else that we might need to go ahead and satisfy this bottom objective here. So yeah, we're doing pretty well on a lot of fronts. I've had cycles where I go back and forth on replanting this mealwood or not, so our resources are still something we're a little bit concerned about, so slime, and that's because we are still relying heavily on mushrooms, even though I have removed some in some of the more random places, like right here does not have them anymore. So yeah, we're still very reliant on slime. We are reliant on dirt, but I do have a good amount of both of them for right now. And at least I am producing some slime. It's not enough to keep up what I have right now, but it's some from these puffs. And this puff population is only going to grow over time, so that's going okay. The dirt also is something I am now manufacturing. So I have a couple of pips that I've found around the map, and we were stashing a couple of them over in this area over here, which I've since deconstructed. when we were at an emergency for resources to keep our colony fed. So what I'm doing for right now is I'm just feeding polluted water to an arbor tree that will be the food for these pips, and they'll drop out some dirt. This will just be my renewable dirt, and I may create a second chamber with these guys just to farm up a good amount. And also note that this is something that I stated earlier. My objective with this is not like a hard, like a firm statement, but what I want to do when I'm producing every food type is I want it to be actually renewable. So I don't want to have stuff where like I'm farming things naturally and kind of like cheating by getting stuff for free. I want to do it all like manual as much as I can. There's a little bit of water here. That's weird. I want to all do it manual as much as I can. So like if I'm growing mealwood, and I'm going to need arbor trees to feed to my pips, I want to actually feed the arbor trees water. So I'm just going to make the most out of every resource that I have rather than doing anything naturally. That's also going to go for fish, by the way. So like... Oh, I need to get this out of here. It's like a random puff that got in here. Auto wrangle 1, and I only set this to morbs, which basically says if anybody gets in here with the puff, then they're just going to get them out and move them. The fish, or the pacus, or whatever they're called, I've got a bunch of them down here, and this is going to be a case where on a real run, you could actually get an okay amount of food from having something like this, like making a giant pool of water at the bottom of your base, and then just continuing to add pacus to them, whether you are increasing their population artificially by feeding some, or by just stashing whatever you get from the printing pods. That can be another way, but I do want to do this legit. So I am going to be farming some pacus based upon the algae that I can get from refining the slime. So this will be coming up here in just a little bit also. Let's talk about future progression. I do need to get rockets up because the end conditions are, of course, winning the game, which means getting to the temporal tear. So I am continuing on my star map research here, and just got a telescope set up in a pretty standard way, as the game takes forever to save and load. And we're getting some progress. We don't have rockets up yet, so I just barely started steel, as you saw. Once we get that steel up, and once we could start to get rockets up, I think it's going to probably be like right here. I might need to add a couple more doors. But I'm just going to have one rocket. I usually do that in my regular playthroughs anyway. You don't really need more than one, I don't think. At least in the base game, by the way. If anybody's confused after watching this, this is the base game. This is not the DLC, so you might wonder why my map is so huge. That's because that's what the base game looks like, so there you go. But yeah, I think it's going to be right here. I do need to make sure to not heat up any of this room, by the way, because I don't have any real form of cooling here, which I guess could be a long-term problem. It depends on the temperature that the oxygen's coming in at. And yeah, it's pretty temperate. By the way, yeah, if you saw my last video, we are on Celsius now. And I am going to maybe be trolling a little bit by calling it centigrade, because nobody calls it that, so I'll just call it that. But yeah, I do need to make sure to keep this separated from my setup over here. So I'm probably just going to like build a wall or something like that, and then just leave a space so there's no actual heat transfer. The only thing that could transfer heat at that point is any gases that come off from the rocket launch, so I'll just have to set this up in a way that really kind of redirects that. Maybe have like some doors here, and then like another set of doors right below or something like that, so I can clear debris. Maybe even just down here, whatever. And then just create a wall for the rockets. I do need to get steam up, and I don't really have an answer for that right now. Nothing is naturally hot enough to do that for me. I guess I could pump it out from like this steam vent that's over here, but it's such a long travel distance that I don't... Is that a good idea? I don't know. I've never done it that way before. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Who cares? Whatever. So I'll use that rather than trying to like make my own steam at a different location. My only steam that I have on the map is right here. Usually what I will do with this is I will have a steam compartment that is taking all of the rocket exhaust and basically harvesting that heat and turning it into energy, but since we can't use that, that's kind of a waste. So if I can get it for free and I don't have to spend any extra power, I think I'm just going to do that. So sure, whatever. I've literally just decided right as I'm making this video that we're going to be capturing this steam vent right here, and we're going to be using that to fuel our rocket. And I'll probably create a big storage area to actually store the steam also. Gonna be a little interesting. I need to make sure we're not getting a lot of heat transfer, so I may vacuum out a chamber or something like that and store the steam that way, and then have some kind of system to only turn on the steam when I want it. so that it's not flowing all the time. And then when I don't want it anymore, I guess I could just vent it into space or something like that. A little bit sloppy, but that's okay. Alright, that's pretty much what I have as far as changes, so let's just go ahead and kind of play for a little while. So what I have to do, and I'm considering setting alarms for myself, is I do have to come over here and tell them to sweep this up every once in a while, and for the cases that are not covered by the impossible to complete builds up here, I do have to still tell them to manually dig. But I do have enough of them respect out here so that they'll be able to do this pretty fast. You can see that if enough of them are on it, they can actually do this really quickly. And then I have an extra bin here that I'm going to need to sort out eventually. That's just a bunch of crap that they've swept up over time. But yeah, so they'll come up here. They'll do this pretty fast, and I'll feed my shove voles. Looks like it's pretty decent thus far, I think. It's not anything too bad or too good, I don't think. So yeah, I mean, I think this is working out. A lot of people have talked about starvation farming, but again, this is just kind of in the spirit of what I have here. I want to be able to produce everything manually rather than relying on, like, natural stuff or, like, other means of getting food. I'd rather do it all that way if I can. Plus, it's been a really long time since I've messed around with shovels like this, so I kind of wanted to play around with what was sustainable in this regard or not. The shovels are absolutely necessary to my survival right now, by the way. Unless I was really investing in, like, huge amounts of Drecos or something like that. Like, my Dreco chamber would have to be, like, you know, this big. It'd have to take up, like, a huge portion of the map for it to actually produce enough food as compared to what these shovels are giving me right now. Because 100 duplicants, feeding 100 duplicants is quite the chore. It takes a lot. Alright, so let's go ahead and empty this back out. Dump a whole bunch in there. Each one of these is 20 tons, so a lot of regolith from that last meteor shower or two. I wasn't really paying attention to how much that was, but yeah. And by the way, I just store a couple of bins here with the on and off settings that I want, so when I want to empty it all out, I will just copy the settings from this, and when I want to fill it back up, I'll copy the settings from this. It's a little bit easier than doing them one by one if you ever wanted to do a scheme like this. It is very manual, and it's very, like, caveman-ish, but yeah, that's what I'm doing, at least for right now. And a large portion of this is that you could ship this out if you had the right materials and stuff like that. I don't, and I don't want to have to pay for the power to cool everything or power it just to ship it, so I'm doing it all manually. That's what the space colony's for. Honestly, the space colony is actually pretty good, all things considered. You don't get any, like, travel warnings because being out in space is one of the worst ways to increase your travel times. But this one's great because my whole, like, set of people that actually does work out here just lives out here too. So this is, like, no travel time for them at all. It's obviously a lot of infrastructure to set up, so it's not super practical, but it is, I don't know, it's kind of cool for a longer run like this. The other thought that I had was, depending on how early or late in the game you could do this, is, like, re-establishing the center of your colony up towards the top somewhere. So if you had to work out in space, it wasn't that bad. I mean, obviously on a regular run, it'd also have transit tubes running out into space, so that it wasn't awful, but it's so much power. And it still does take a long time to travel, even with the tubes, so I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's pretty cool. I've also been trying to sweep up the map, by the way. Just putting a bunch of random bins around. Just to have them put them all into one place and kind of improve my performance a little bit, because it is getting pretty bad as I get out to the edges of the map sometimes. And also while I'm recording, it can be pretty bad, so, like, my frame rate isn't great. You can kind of see it chopping up there just a little bit, but it'll get better as I clean more stuff up. I don't know why I always forget what these things are. Okay, a volcano. Oh, that explains it. I don't literally have no use for that. I guess I could use it to turn oil into petroleum or something like that. Maybe we'll play around with that this game. Oh, another thing I need to do is I need to get rid of my ventilation because I have moved it down to the bottom. Is this ready for liquid? Yes. So I'm going to open this up also. And just kind of have this pour in here. This will be eventually what happens in most of my runs. I'll just kind of create an area at the bottom where I funnel all of the water that's on the map as I dig it out. Because that can be an extra useful water source, but it also is really good for having a good place for all these pacus to kind of spread out and have enough of them. Can be a little bit of an extra food source, but I will farm these manually, by the way. We will get to that. this is kind of all I've been doing in the last little bit, and kind of why there's been a long gap. Whoa, that's a lot of things in a row. Why there's been kind of a long gap in videos, because I'm just doing a lot of stuff like this to help get rid of all the random junk on the map. It also does help to get me more materials for certain things, like algae can be important if I want to feed those fish. Slime, obviously, as I'm digging this out right now. But even just getting all this out of the way, I think it's more of like a mental thing. Like, it just kind of feels good to clean it all up and have it all be uniform. So yeah, I don't know. A lot of reasons. I guess I don't really have to justify it, but that's the idea. Let's see. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this. I can't remember if I had this finished last time, but either way, if we didn't, this is what a finished setup of cooling looks like this. Kind of just a free way to cool stuff by way of only using it as a... The phosphorite's the only constant upkeep, and I get that for free anyway, based upon what I'm ranching. So it looks like this is a good amount for 7 pumps, or I guess 4 electrolyzers, since that's what's actually producing the heat. Looks like 10 Wheezeworts does a pretty good job, holding steady around 15 Celsius. Nice and cool. So yeah, that's been a success, I think. Let's see, what else can we do? Let's actually start checking out and seeing what kind of foods we need to start producing, just so we can get an idea of what we still need. Oh, I don't even have this all researched. That's funny. Alright, let's get this. The screen is really goofy, by the way. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I feel like I always start with the screen like this. It's in like such a weird place. But yeah, it'd be interesting, or it'd probably be better if it just centered on the last thing that you had researched. Rather than being like, hey, here's your research screen. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Alright, let's get the oven. Or I forget what that's called. It's been so long since I've actually forced myself to use that. Let's get a micro musher, because we will need to make stuff. Oh, I'm gonna need water access here. This kitchen's gonna get weird, guys. Yeah, I'm gonna need water for... Oh, man. I'm gonna have to make mush bars, too. Oh, how am I gonna do this? Because I don't want to spend all my dirt all the time. Like, I need that dirt for plant food. Oh, man. Alright, a lot of this responsibility is now hitting me. I don't need this anymore, by the way. Huh. Alright, maybe... Do these have, like... I wonder if they have automation inputs. Yes, okay, so... I guess what I could do is I could have a whole bunch of fridges that are responsible for storing different things, and only turn it on if somebody happens to eat it. Which might not be good. I guess another thing I could do... This is going to take forever to load, by the way. Ready, set, go. Man, 100 duplicates. Okay, here we go. What I could do is I could force certain duplicants to eat certain foods just to assure that... Or, like, restrict them to that, so that... I guess my minimum requirement could be that if a duplicant can't eat because I'm not producing enough of that food, then I think that means we're not counted as winning, right? There's also some things I obviously can't do, like I can't do nutrient bars or muckroot or hexalant, because that is just kind of like a one-time thing. I can't produce that. But the rest of this, maybe I will just like section it off for different duplicants to eat and just prove that I can sustain one duplicant on a certain type of food to assure that I'm not, like, bypassing anything. There's a whole bunch of stuff here that I apparently have not discovered. That's why most of this is missing, which means that opening this menu is going to get even worse. Can no one come in here? Is that what's going on with this? No, they have to be able to. Right? Oh, long load. Okay, yeah, we're good. So yeah, they'll come build it here in a second. Okay, here we go. So yeah, let's see all the different things that we're going to have to do. Some of it's... yeah. Trying to think of what I'm going to start on next. I guess bristle blossoms. The reason I'm getting food diversity right now is because that'll make it easier for me, excuse me, to switch off all these mushrooms, because this is a limited resource, whereas something like this is renewable once it gets all the way up. Whoa, did you see that? That was weird. I swear I was moving my mouse as I zoomed in, and it was like, yeah. Huh, I don't know. Maybe it's my monitor shaking. I'm not tired, you're tired. Alright, so yeah, we're going to need some tofu, which is going to be very expensive to produce. I've done this once before. It is awful. Just cooling ethanol down is such an exercise. because the only way you can reliably produce it is from wood, which is going to have to be from something like this. It's arbitrary. They call it lumber, but I'm going to call it wood, whatever. But cooling it down is so expensive because it gets produced at a fixed temperature as far as I know, and that temperature is pretty high. So just to make tofu, you have to, like, super cool your ethanol. This might be the worst food in the game, by the way, which is kind of a disappointment to me because this was something that was not part of the base game originally. This was added fairly recently. And these things are so awful, at least in terms of feeding them manually. If you were just going to let them grow naturally via pips, I guess it wouldn't be that bad. They still do need to be pretty cold. But yeah, if you're feeding them ethanol and feeding them dirt and it has to be this cold, it's so bad. Like, I can't even overstate how bad that is. I guess one thing I could do for cooling for a little while is just run it through my frozen core, because I still do have a lot of utility I could get out of this. So maybe that'll be a thing. Maybe I'll just build it straight in here. I don't know. How cold can those go? This is actually way too cold in here. Man. Maybe I could at least run my ethanol through there just to cool it down so I don't have to pay for it power-wise. Which, I guess, doesn't really count as sustainable food, but as long as I can sustain duplicants with the food that I'm making, regardless of how I'm making it, I guess that technically counts. I say this as I'm, like, debating, because I'm just making up the rules, as if there are any official rules. Yeah, so, yeah, tofu. And I'm not going to hate on tofu. Like, real-life tofu is pretty good if you do it the right way. And I know everybody says that, but it's true. At least everybody that has an opinion on tofu most of the time is like, I don't know, if you do it the right way, it can be pretty good. But, wait, why am I loading this to two different points? That doesn't make any sense. Yeah, what? Why would I do that? That doesn't make any sense. I'm gonna get rid of this. Not this. Is it because it needs to go over here? No, then I should be deleting the other one. Let me cancel all this. I should be deleting this one. This one doesn't do anything. Yeah, tofu, I mean, if it has its place, it goes well in some things. It's not like something that you would just cook and eat. Like, you have to put a little bit of work into it. But as far as in this game, tofu is just terrible from the standpoint of efficiency. So, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think if there's any worse food in the game, and I really don't think so. Oh. Nice. Don't look. He's having a moment. What was that? Game's doing some weird stuff. There was like a bunch of arms that just appeared around him. He's gonna jump it all down here, isn't he? This was something that people told me they used for Sweepy, which is interesting because it's such like a niche reason to use it, but I guess it works, I don't know. Just have a robot just to clean up your pee. I don't know, sounds pretty cool actually. So yeah, this is effectively where we are, and this is what the play sessions look like once the game kind of dies down, or rather when I'm not recording. So this is why I try to have like a big burst of stuff to talk about. Otherwise, if I was doing everything, it would just literally be me rambling and doing things very slowly. While we're doing things slowly, I guess it's about that time to start setting up blossoms, so I could start doing some of that. And again, I need enough to sustain at least one duplicant with just blossoms. But I also need the blossoms to go into berry sludge and into stuff berries, which stuff berries are really cool actually. I wish they were... This was something I was talking with somebody in the comments as well, was I wish there were more options that were like useful to do, because once you get on barbecue in a regular run, there's not really a reason to do anything else, which is kind of unfortunate because like this tofu, the only reason that you would ever do this is because you'd be curious as far as to what it was. But yeah, I'm continually like hoping that they can make enough stuff that will deprive you of resources. So like, let's say for example, barbecue required salt or something like that. Or it required 3 things like salt and peppers, which, lol. Let's just say it required something like that. so that there was more of a barrier to entry into that, so that you would actually consider producing these other things. Like you'd consider producing berry sludge, or you would consider stuff berries or something like that. Or actually try to sustain forever on mealwood, or try to sustain forever on blossoms or something like that. I wish that was more the case, because I feel like barbecue invalidates a lot of things. And in the case of the DDLC, and the reason that this conversation was relevant is because I made the same type of statement about solar power. It kind of does the same thing in the DLC right now, where the only reason to do anything other than that for most of your power needs is because you want to. Which is fine, but I think it's more interesting if you have to. But maybe I'm in the minority on that. I don't know. Okay, that's pretty much all I have for this video. I am not sure what my next videos are going to be. Probably more DLC. I have been very busy with other stuff recently, so I'm not producing as frequently as I would like. Wait, what is this? Why am I shipping slime? Not producing the videos as frequently as I would like, but... What? How did that... Are these set to pick up slime? Is that what's going on here? No. How did this get through? I don't know what happened. Huh. Alright, anyway. Yeah, I don't know what my next video is going to be. Probably more DLC runs. I think after that, I do have some other tutorials that people have been asking about a little bit. And, truth be told, some of my videos were trying to line up with how new players would have experienced the game during the influx that came in during the DLC. So I'm guessing some of them are starting to get out into space and are starting to need suits and advanced stuff like that. So I'm going to make some tutorials about those coming up here pretty soon. If you have anything that's urgent that you'd like to talk about, then let me know, and I'll prioritize those. But yeah, outside of that, have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next video here really soon. Thanks for watching. Take care.